I think it's about hubris. It's about personal hubris. It's about Nobel Peace Prizes, and it's about a place in history. If he was serious about this, he would not be effectively kowtowing to Putin, allowing an indicted war criminal to come to the United States and be feted as the head of state of Russia, and rolling over, effectively giving Putin what he wants.
Well, speaking of domestic arguments, one big row. The US President Donald Trump has sent a stark message to President Zelensky ahead of his summit with Russia this week. He says Ukraine must accept new borders, and though he will try and get some land back, he criticised President Zelensky for refusing to cede territory. The Ukrainian president is far from hopeful about the summit. He said his intelligence service is telling him that Putin is definitely not preparing for a ceasefire or an end to the war. The Russian president is determined only to present a meeting with America as his personal victory, says Zelensky. So what are the implications of redrawing the map in this way for Ukraine, but also for Europe and the UK? General Sir Richard Shirreff is the former NATO Deputy Supreme Allied Commander for Europe and joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning.
We should start first with the idea of a land swap, because that does seem to be the central idea here of these talks between Putin and the American President Trump. What is meant by a land swap in this context?
Well, it's not just it's as far as land is concerned, it's giving to Russia parts of sovereign Ukraine. I don't see any sign at all that there's going to be anything back for Ukraine. But it's more than that. It's a people swap. It's giving up Ukrainian people to Russian occupation. It's putting more Ukrainian people under the sort of ghastliness of deportation of children, of murders and of civilians, of massacres of civilians, and it's no more than surrender for Ukraine.
And yet it does seem to be the thing that Donald Trump is focused on as the way to solve this conflict, at least from the Russian side. If territory was handed over to the Russians, and it's impossible to say along what boundary lines we could potentially be talking about here, do you think there is any way that would resolve this current conflict?
No, it's not going to. Trump needs to understand that the only way there will be a lasting peace in Ukraine is when Russia understands conclusively, finally, that it will never get its hands on Ukraine. We are miles away from that. The only way that's going to happen is for America to double down, Europe to double down on the military support for Ukraine, to allow Ukraine to really take the fight to the Russians, and for the international community to double down on sanctions and on other financial penalties for Russia. Anything else is no good. And in addition to that, the only way there'll be a lasting peace is if there are cast iron security guarantees to ensure that Russia never tries it on again. That the only security guarantee that means anything is NATO membership. Unless those are in place, there will never be a lasting peace. And Trump, frankly, is doing no more than whistling in the wind from a position of weakness.
I want to come back to NATO membership because I think that's quite an important point here. But before I do that, on the redrawn border, if that is where these discussions end up going on Friday, what would be the implications for Europe, for wider Europe, of a new border between Ukraine and Russia?
The implications are massive. The implications for European security long term are massive, because a new border is very, very likely to weaken Ukraine. Of course, clearly we need to see what that looks like. There may be parts of Ukraine which won't have longer term implications. But the fundamental point is this, that a new border means that Putin has redrawn the map of Europe by force. He's got away with it. We Europeans and America have let him get away with it and have sat back and said, you can take what you want by force. The implications for European security are far-reaching.
Are you concerned that Europe has been sidelined? I mean, clearly Ukraine is being excluded from these talks between Trump and Putin, but the Europeans too don't seem to have any influence over what Donald Trump is seeking at this meeting anymore.
Europe has been sidelined. But Europe has been sidelined largely because Europe collectively is weak. And we Europeans have ourselves to blame because for too long we have sat back and expected America to pick up the bill for our security. European governments, if they really mean business here, need to fundamentally change their mindset.
One of the things you raised there was the point about NATO. It is one of the stipulations of Ukraine that it needs NATO membership. It needs essentially the continued protection of NATO. It's also one of Putin's conditions that would never be on the table for Ukraine. How big of a deal is NATO membership in this argument, in this potential agreement between Russia and Ukraine?
Well, as I said, the only security guarantee that matters is NATO membership. Of course, Putin doesn't want that. Putin actually wants to see NATO roll back to its pre-97 borders because he wants to see NATO neutralized or destroyed. So it is a big deal. And coming back to security guarantees, why do I say it's the only security guarantee that matters? Because it's the only one that really applies force. If you look back, we saw the Budapest Memorandum of 1994, under which Britain, France, Russia, and United States guaranteed Ukrainian security in return for Ukraine giving up its nuclear weapons. What happened in 2014? Britain, France, America rolled over and let Russia get away with it. So that's why NATO membership is the only one that matters.
So are security guarantees even worth the paper they're written on, realistically?
No, not unless they're backed by force. And the point about NATO membership is that it would mean NATO troops stationed in Ukraine to guarantee Ukrainian security, as well as NATO aircraft in the skies above Ukraine. Standing back and issuing threats or promises based on nothing are worthless.
What can Keir Starmer do now, in your view? I mean, you've given us your take on the fact that Europe has been sidelined and potentially it's far too late for us to be involved in these negotiations on Friday. But what can the Prime Minister do at this point?
Well, it's very difficult to see what he can do because he's speaking from a position of extreme weakness. And this is a problem that goes back to 2 decades, if not longer. I think what the Prime Minister can do, the only thing he can do is marshal Europeans together to say so that it's very clear that Europe is prepared to go it alone without America. But it's a very difficult position to be in because, as I say, of the crippling weakness that Europeans have placed upon themselves over decades.
Just finally, what is your assessment of Donald Trump's motivation here? Is it personal? Is it about doing a deal with Russia? Is it financial? Or does he genuinely want to stop the fighting? I mean, some people look upon him and think, well, at least he's trying to do something, whereas others say he's getting involved in a conflict for his own personal gain.
I think it's about hubris. It's about personal hubris. It's about Nobel Peace Prizes, and it's about a place in history. If he was serious about this, he would not be effectively kowtowing to Putin, allowing an indicted war criminal to come to the United States and be feted as the head of state of Russia and rolling over, effectively giving Putin what he wants.
General Sir Richard Shirreff, many thanks for joining us on the programme this morning.
Thank you very much.